guys! Today I want to talk about some books that I want to reread this year. I'm just such a level 7 susceptible person. I see something, some form of media, I see a TikTok or like an Instagram comic or of a book, and I'm like, I should reread the entire series. Or they're just favorites that I've missed. So, there's a lot of books that I've seen recently that I just want to reread because they were so good. Or they've been on my favorite shelf for like years and I have not reread them, which I think that's just kind of a crime as a reader. Like, why am I not rereading my favorites regularly? Like, they deserve love. They're clearly on my favorite shelf for a reason. Like, so the first book I wanted to reread is Ready Player One. I read this book probably in 2018. I want to say I was in university already, so probably 2018, 2019. And it was so good. I remember I clearly thought it was so good. I put literal, I like have like actual like full-size sticky notes to make these annotations. So this book follows Wade Watts, which that's not a superhero name. So we follow Wade Watts, who lives in the real world, but the real world is kind of a dumpster fire. It's pollution is bad, wars are going on, like it's just not a good time. But there's something called the Oasis, which is basically a virtual world created by, I think his name is James Halliday. I'll correct it if it's not, but there's something called the Oasis and everyone is plugged in. Somehow virtual reality is this huge thing. It's 2044. So virtual reality is everywhere. Everyone has access to it and they all use it to escape reality. And basically the creator of the Oasis, James Halliday, passes away and he leaves this giant set of puzzles for anyone to solve, and if they solve all of it then they get some type of reward at the end. And of course our main character, Wade Watts, our boy Wade Watts, wants to solve it. And I remember thinking this was so original, and I heard the movie was kind of bad so I never watched it. But the next book I want to reread, The Way of Kings. When I read this for the first time, I was blown away. I thought, wow, this is what magic feels like. This is a chunky book, but it was worth the read. And I want to reread it because I have the next 3 books that are all equally as chunky, and I have not read any of them. And now I remember generally what happened in this book, but just to fully be re-immersed into the world, I want to reread it. So that is my goal this year, to reread this book. So The Way of Kings follows multiple people. The main character, I would say, is Kaladin, who was a higher born person. So the setting is kind of medieval adjacent. So Kaladin was a son of a doctor. He was very well educated, but during a war that he enlists for, he is betrayed. And then he's forced into a position in the army where he's very likely to die. They're called bridge runners, and they basically carry bridges. So they have little squads, little troops, and they run these bridges back and forth. And the whole thing is that the enemy, will shoot arrows at these bridge runners and they're likely to die. But Kaladin, for some reason, the arrows go around him. They don't hit him. They don't hit the people in his group, in his bridge. And then we're like, there's something about him. We also follow another character named Dalinar, who is the brother of the deceased king. And he was previously that sloppy uncle at functions, but he's finding his way back to becoming more respectable by following the Way of Kings, which is a set of rules to follow to be a more righteous person. We follow another character. there's a few characters. So we also follow a main character named Shalin, who she's from a home where her brothers and her family are pretty poor. So she's trying to basically get a mentorship from the princess in this world, who's a notable scholar, and steal from her and basically bring back something that's valuable and sell it, pawn it, bring back her family's fortune. But she ends up becoming she gets into the education part. She starts learning that she loves like learning under this scholar, and she wants to further her own education instead of being kind of trapped in this family dynamic where she's needs to be doing all these terrible things to bring back their prestige. Again, I would love to reread this book. It has some small print, but it just flies by, I feel. I remember reading this in like a month and a half, so like it was a little bit of I read it slowly, but I'm gonna do it again. It was so good. Okay. The next books, I literally saw a comic. If I find it again, I will post it here because I just want to show how easily like influenced I was to read these books. But they are The Bear and the Nightingale, I should say. The Bear and the Nightingale trilogy. So the first book, The Bear and the Nightingale, it follows the story of Vasya, who is a young girl or young woman throughout the book, who lives in a small village in northern Russia, who's very attuned with the stories and folklore and just the ancient magic that is present around her and has been told to her and passed down to her. However, her mother falls ill and her father ends up remarrying this woman who is very religious, and this essentially feeds into causing a lot of darkness to be stirring in that village and in the forest, and Vasya basically has to help all the spirits gain strength to fight against this darkness that's coming. Of course, the plot escalates quite a lot as you continue, but okay, the next book I want to reread, Stour of Blood. I read this book on Kindle originally, and it was just so like, it was so captivating. I flew through it. I read it when I was supposed to be doing something else. And of course, that's like when you're reading the most frantic, you're just like getting through this because you know you're supposed to be doing something else, but it's just so good. You can't put it down. Stour of Blood is about the first bride of Dracula, Constanta, in this book, and why she had to kill him. So we learn that on the first page. She basically is talking about how she's murdered him and why and how they got to that point. So we're following her as she is turned into a vampire, and then as Dracula is gaining more partners throughout the story, so there's 2 others, and how he was controlling and how he drove the partners apart from each other so they only loved him, and how those power dynamics impacted their relationship with each other but also with him, but how they also loved him, and how having to choose between themselves, their love for themselves and their freedom away from him, but also their love for him and what he's done for them, how he's treated them kindly in certain moments. I thought it was so good. I think this is such a great way to show different dynamics in love, like during love, because each of the partners has a different relationship with Dracula. We never get his name, but because he doesn't deserve a name, but how they all have a different relationship with Dracula, why they love him, how they fell into that relationship and how that dynamic got created between them, and then why that's toxic, but why that was also like a great love in their life. It also just talks about how it's hard to be independent once you're in a relationship that is so controlling, and you kind of get lost between what's control and what's love. It was so good. It was really good. So I hope to reread it. This book is very quick. Like, the font is ginormous and it's not very long. S.D. Gibson is also coming out with like 1 or 2 new books this year. I'm so ready. I'm so ready. Okay. The last book I want to reread this year is Ninth House. So I read this in 2020, and then Hellbent came out last year, and I did not pick up Hellbent, unfortunately. I was not I was not on my TBR, unfortunately. So I really want to reread Ninth House before I read Hellbent, because I think it's been a while since I was in this world. I don't really remember a lot of what happened, to be honest. I don't know if it's the pace I read it at. Maybe I spread it out. I spread it out across a month or two or longer. And that's why I don't remember. But yeah, I did rate this like 4.5 stars. Maybe not 4.5. I did rate this at least 4 stars. So I remember I did like it, but I don't remember what happened, and I feel like I just want to be in the full swing of it. Again, just like the other books, I want to be in the full world before I like continue on. Just so like I'm not missing anything and I'm not confused, because this was a very dense world. There was a lot of things going on. If I remember, there's a lot of secret societies. They all mean different things. They all do different things. So yeah. Okay guys, that's it. Those are all the books I want to reread this year. I hope that I get through them. I feel like a lot of the readers on this platform, you know, we set pretty mighty TBRs for ourselves. So I hope I follow through. I am going to follow through. I'm not going to give myself a choice, because these are only like maybe like 5 or 6 books. So I can definitely do that. I believe in myself, and I believe in you. You can finish and accomplish your TBRs. Okay, thank you for joining me today. I hope I see you again.